Hello and welcome to A Trader's Life. I think we can all agree that one of the key components to becoming a successful trader consistently over time is this thing we call mindset, the psychology, which really is more about our emotions. How do we keep our emotions in check? Do we have a sort of strategy that enables us to cut off from that emotional reaction, for instance, to losing a lot of money in one trade? Waking up in the morning, heavy drawdown. How do we keep that in check and stop ourselves from making stupid mistakes based on emotion? Well, my next guest, Scott Mangis, went the whole 9 yards. He went to live in Japan to become a monk, improved his mindset, returned to the States, in fact Hawaii, that's where he lives now. He lives in a temple, still practicing as a monk, and transformed his trading. Now, he didn't move to Japan and to become a monk only for his trading, but it was part of his journey, and it was a way to get on top of a lot of emotions that were going on in his life besides trading. And it's transformed, the experience has transformed the way he trades, the way he lives, of course. He now also heals people, not just works as a mentor, if you like. I found his story really fascinating, quite unique. So do stick around, watch to the end, some really interesting, deep stuff. Enjoy. Scott, how are you doing? How's Hawaii looking this morning?
So far so good. Most days you catch the sunrise, and it's just it's an easy way to start your day here.
Yeah, 7 o'clock here, well, 6 o'clock I should say, here in London, 7 o'clock in the morning where you are.
Yeah, yeah. It's just it was interesting when I got here in September last year, and I thought, okay, in my mind I knew that this is a different world, and slow down, take it easy. And I thought I was until I realized, when I'm talking to people, I'm just overwhelming there how fast I'm talking, the ideas I'm throwing out. It was like, wait a minute, you're not in Kansas anymore. Slow down.
Well, this is a first for me, a trader who is not only a monk but also quite the other end, U.S. Marine.
Yeah.
That's quite an arc. You weren't fighting at least, but it's still quite a shift in one's life. So
Yeah.
tell me how you move
It
from
takes a
these transitions.
long, yeah, it takes a long time to get the Marine Corps mentality out of your head after 20 years. It, and it's still there lurking in the shadows.
Yeah. So what took you into the Marines?
Uh, at that stage in my life, I was best described as going nowhere. Um, Maybe using the term derelict is too generous. But,
Okay.
so I was 19 going on 20, and I had attempted a semester at college, and I think I failed one class and I passed the other one. And high school wasn't my thing, and then college right after high school wasn't my thing. So being directionless, and one of my friends, he joined the Navy, and I think that was all the the nudge I needed, that maybe there's something I can do better.
And how long were you in the Marines?
I did all 20 years.
It was
So I
20, was
went,
it? Okay, yeah.
yeah. So they let you retire after 20, and by the time I'd gotten to 20, I don't think they wanted me anymore, and I certainly didn't want them anymore.
Okay. And then somehow you got into trading. So how did that happen?
I started to trade. I started trading stocks. I think we all got pulled into the bubble in '98, and I was living in Japan at the time. I was stationed in Okinawa, and you couldn't do anything wrong, and trading stocks was easy. Mutual funds back in the mid '80s, I first started investing as like a long term uh, savings, long term retirement type idea. And then I got caught up in the speculative nature of in the late '90s, and started trading. Then, I should say, in '98, I moved down to Singapore, and I was stationed down there for 4 years. And we didn't have a whole lot going on sometimes, so we had a lot of time to research. And I got into stock options, and I started making pretty good money. And then 2000 hit, and we all got shredded. And then 2002, I moved to San Diego and was getting ready to retire. And I met a guy that lived in our building that was a futures trader. And he got me started on the E-mini, the S&P E-mini back in probably 2003. And then I retired from the Marine Corps in February '04, became a stockbroker with a company in San Diego, became a commodity broker and commodity trader, and worked with a number of people up until 2009. And none of it was glorious, none of it was great. But I still continued to trade, and I was never a very good trader. Um,
Why were you not a good trader?
Way too emotional. You know, if if they could put a meter on when your greed gland starts pumping, I was always looking at the trade as it was going to provide something for me. And if I hit this one, then if I hit this one, and looking back, the mindset was incredible, and completely understandable how you could really never accumulate capital because it was always a gambling mentality.
It's interesting for me that you come from the discipline of Marine Corps and into trading, and then you find you're too emotional. Somebody might think, coming from something as disciplined as the army, where you follow orders, you follow rules, you might have somehow got that emotional reaction out of your system. But you found, no, I'm myself here and it's my money and I can't bear to lose it. Something like that.
Uh, I think that's a good part of it, and the other part of it is there's just so many things that are out of our control. And if you come from a military mindset that I tell you, I outrank you, and I tell you what to do, and you're going to do it, and it's that simple. Whether it's a good decision or a bad decision, we can revisit that probably with the people I work for. But from me to you, you do as you're told. And when I got into the market, I started looking at this thing, and nothing was under my control. No matter how much I researched or how much I thought out my trades, something would always go wrong that I didn't see coming, or I just wasn't getting what I want. And you can kind of summarize it in three ways. One is I'm getting what I want, so I'm great, I'm glorious, I'm perfect. But more than likely, there were two things happening. I didn't get what I want, or I was getting what I didn't want. And those two scenarios made up the balance of my trading experience. And the evolution out of that is what's transformative. How I chose to deal with this idea that I'm not getting what I want or I'm getting what I don't want. And it's pretty consistent. And losing money hurts. And it's a painful experience in many different ways. So the idea of learning my way out of that was what I think is where eventually I end up in the Zen community. It's sitting on a cushion in a Zen temple for 10 years. That I don't know. I can't say exactly how all those pieces fell together, but it was something started in this idea that it's easy to trade. Let me swing in a hammock in Costa Rica in no time, and life will be glorious. And it didn't work out that way.
That's quite a radical shift, isn't it? From, okay, things didn't work out with trading, but then you've gone into this completely other space, which is learning to be a Zen monk and actually moving, to a temple and so on. So, what caused that to come about?
I get that question. How can it be compatible to be a Zen Buddhist priest and be a futures trader? And I don't want to dive into Buddhism or seem like I'm selling anything, but there are four basic tenets of what the Buddha taught. And the first one that all life is suffering, and suffering. The second one is suffering comes from attachment, and the third one is that we can let go of suffering by letting go of attachment. And then the fourth one is that you let go of attachment by following what he called the Eightfold Path, which is basically do the things that they taught you in kindergarten. Be nice to people, have good relationships, good thoughts, good employment, good work. So letting go of the attachment to the outcome of a trade, is dovetails very nicely with Zen Buddhism. And I can't think of a more rich or fertile ground where you get to practice letting go of attachment And as I'm watching my net worth go up tick by tick by tick on every trade. So I think, yeah, I think they fit together nicely because again, it's fertile ground.
That totally makes sense on an emotional level. Do you think by improving your emotional reaction to outcomes in the trading world and your day-to-day trading, that did you find that you also improved your strategy? The actual, because I mean, they're kind of two things. One is the mindset, emotional reaction, and then is just the kind of practical way of looking at charts, incorporating fundamentals and so on into your trading practice, and hopefully they dovetail together and they produce great results, right? So you
Right.
managed to improve your mindset through Zen Buddhism. Did that have a kind of knock-on effect, a beneficial knock-on effect in informing how you analyze charts, how you look at data, news, and so on?
It does in the sense that most of what I was doing as a trader was reactionary. And so if I'm anticipating that the market, the S&P is going to go up for the day because, and that because, when I put that because word in there, that says, okay, I've done some sort of analysis and I have some sort of internal biases and I think it's going to go up. So I approach the day from that perspective. And that anything that doesn't happen, if it's not doing that, then it's going against what I anticipated, and that creates mental suffering, physiological suffering, puts me in a state of anger, fear, anxiety, things like that. So what the meditation practice brings you is an ability to learn how to respond to input versus react to input. And if I part and parcel of that in Zen Buddhism is that everything happens for the first time. So everything, there's no past in this sense. There's no future. So every time I sit down to do some analysis, it's the very first time I've looked at the market. It's the very first time I've done this. It's the very first trade. So the better that I can learn to jettison the past or not get hooked out into the future, then I can be in that present moment and I'm looking at things from a pure mind or empty mind. And then the meditation is what gives you that experience of achieving a no mind state to where you're so used to throwing away the thoughts as they come up that they don't stick very long anymore. And then when the market does start to move, it doesn't create this immediate sense of fear or greed and reaction. It creates, okay, now it's an opportunity to evaluate what's going on. And it's not an instant process, input, stimulus, reaction. It's input or stimulus, and okay, let's let's see what's going on here. And a good story it was when my daughter was about three and a half. She used to sit on my lap every morning and eat breakfast in Tokyo. We didn't have a couch. Everything's on the floor, and it's just so laid back. And I'm leaning against the wall, and she's sitting on my lap facing me, and I'm feeding her this big scoop of yogurt and chopped up raisins and nuts. I give her a big mouthful, and I can see her eyes close and her head tilt back. I thought, well, she's going to sneeze. And it's this far away, and I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be good, because I didn't want to throw up my hands. I didn't want to. It was just going to be a precious moment, and she built up all this pressure, and she cut loose, and she sprayed yogurt and stuff all over my face on the wall. And she opened her eyes, and she started laughing. I started laughing, and you know how a child laughs? It's just captivating. And so that ability to respond to this situation created a memory that we still talk about it today. It's just so dear to me that we call it the yogurt sneeze, and that's an idea of what a meditation practice can bring you, is that space to make that response.
In a way, it's a sort of getting into this space, this kind of calmer space, and not reacting. But interesting, you sort of differentiate between reacting and responding. But anyway, responding in a calmer way, being in the present moment, those seem really important qualities or conditions to achieve great results in trading. But at the same time, trading requires, as far as I can see, an awareness of patterns and therefore history, because our pattern recognition comes from experience, which is the history. So you've got this sort of dichotomy in a way between the present moment and being in the moment and not letting
Right.
past events bother you. But at the same time, you have to have recall to that past event or those patterns, or you're probably going to screw up, right? Just on a technical level. So how do you reconcile those two? Because in recalling the past and pattern recognition, you are possibly inevitably recalling bad experiences as well as good experiences. So how do you sort of filter out the bad?
That's a really good point, because the way our mind works, my mind only operates in the past or in the future. It doesn't operate in the present moment. And the way our minds operate is that I have to compare and I have to contrast what I'm seeing now with something in the past to make sense out of it, or I have to project that into the future. And all that. So perhaps if we use Elliott wave terms just to keep it simple, I see an ABC pattern or I see a 5-wave impulse pattern. Now, under the rules of Elliott, I know what that's supposed to mean. But as we all know, Elliott waves are really hard to do in real time, but they're very clear
Retrospectively.
in retrospect. So yes, these things are important. They are a catalog of information in our mind. Accessing that information from a state of fear or a state of anxiety or a state of euphoria, is a different matter than accessing that information from a state of calm. Because one of them is you're processing from the hindbrain, from the reptilian brain, from the primal fight or flight, or versus if I'm in a flow state, then it's the prefrontal cortex. I'm accessing all the information, and emotion is the key there. And what some people teach you, and what's called a company called HeartMath teaches you, that emotion or that initial input comes from the heart. That gives the information to the brain, and the brain dictates which way it's going to process information. So coming back to your question, is being centered, being aware, heart focused breathing versus mind based breathing gives us access to that intuitive action of our being.
Okay, so it is a kind of filtering system then, isn't it? It sort of works a
Yeah.
bit like that. While you were practicing Zen Buddhism, did your strategy change somehow as well at the same time? What was your strategy, in fact? Let's start with the basics. What were you doing? What was your way of analyzing charts, stocks, whatever?
I've always been a technical person. I've never really been fond of fundamental analysis. And it goes back, I have a graduate degree in finance from University of Leicester. And I think it was in that program that I realized that fundamental analysis and, what was the efficient market hypothesis and all these things are gobbledygook. And when I met the futures trader that lived in my building, he was very short term. So he'd have a daily chart and 35 in 1 minute. And he would use a quarter point stop. And that's what I started on, thinking, okay, that's what I can do. And if you get 2 points a day in the S&P on an E-mini, that's $100 a day. And then every so often, back then margins were $3 or $4 grand for intraday. It was something ridiculous cheap. You can scale up every time to another contract, and within a year, you're making $1 million a year. So that was where my mindset was. It was a math equation. And looking back on that, my mindset, the way I operated, wasn't suitable to that kind of constant input, constant stimulus, because I was just triggered all day long. It was exhausting, and I didn't see it for what it was. And the harder being from the military and kind of an alpha male person, I trained in karate, I trained in Thai kickboxing. I was still sparring at that age, and it was just unbelievable to me that I wasn't getting my way. And I couldn't force the market to go my way. And what a reckoning that was.
Yeah, an opponent that keeps beating you. Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah, at least the end of the bell in a 3 minute round sets you free for at least a minute, if not longer. But in trading, it's just you're taking abuse as long as you stay in there.
Yeah, completely. Yeah,
Just nothing will save you.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's all day long. It's not 9 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, there's waking up at 3 a.m. Oh my God, maybe I'm going to miss something.
Yeah,
The
cold
fear,
sweat.
the FOMO. And it wasn't even a term back then, but the fear of missing out drove us into just as commodity brokers. It was ridiculous.
So where did you learn your trading techniques? Was it just this guy? I mean, did you just like sit with him and follow his tactics and like find something that suited you?
That's originally how it started, and he was big on he was a programmer, so he programmed a lot of stuff in TradeStation, and he had automated strategies and things like that, and they were all based on his canned indicators. So I don't, but he would give me the indicators, but I couldn't dissect them, and I've never been a TradeStation easy language writer, um, so it was basically using different moving averages and other things to generate an idea of what the momentum of the market was, and then when it's going to reverse and when it's exhausted in a certain direction. And then about 2003, maybe 2004, I stumbled across Drummond. It's called Drummond Geometry, and that's who I work with now as an employee of Drummond, but also as a trader. We sell software, and the methodology or the philosophy of Drummond geometry is what resonated with me, because this guy Charles Drummond looked at markets as energy flow, and you have a monthly flow, you have a yearly flow, you have a 1 minute flow, and what he brought to the table was this multiple time frame analysis of this energy flow. So a monthly chart could be in congestion moving sideways, but there are huge weekly trends both up and down in a monthly congestion or daily. So I began to understand or study that methodology, and then eventually they were developing, because it used to hand draw this stuff. So I had a Excel spreadsheet that I put in the daily data, and then would give me this thing called a PL dot, point and line dot. You draw that on your chart, and you use these short-term trend lines, and it was really kind of cool, cerebral to have to take the information and draw it on paper, and that's when things started to get better for me, but I was still nowhere near where I need to be emotionally. Uh, so, and then Drummond Geometry over the years has evolved into some very complex trading software that's just unbelievable, and a body of knowledge and educational material and stuff. So it's its own little world. But that fundamental part that, I'm energy, this is energy, energy's flowing, uh, also dovetails nicely with Zen, in the idea that, I'm not watching the market, I am the market. You know, there's no separation. This idea of me and not me goes away in Zen. And so when you're looking at a market, assuming the feel, the flow of the market, then you can become integrated with it, so the decision-making process feels very natural versus contrived.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's interesting you say that because I've sort of caught a glimpse of that just in 3 years, and that just occasionally I feel this sort of sync of where the market's moving, and it's quite interesting. I mean, obviously it's to do with experience to a degree. You've seen these
Yeah,
patterns before, but there is this, as you say, it's almost like a sort of flow state, a sort of sense of moving with a wave, like a surfer or something. You kind of you timed it, and it feels very intrinsic and kind of
yeah,
innate. It's
effortless.
effortless,
It's
yeah, yeah, a sort of energy sync.
My wife is a ceramic artist, and years ago in San Diego, I was at her studio, and she gave me a lump of clay and a wheel, and she said, "I want you to make a cylinder." And in the process of that 10 or 15 minutes that my fingers were in the clay and I was trying to draw it up into the cylinder form, I don't recall having a single thought, a single thing going on. And I knew immediately your fingers touching the clay and the the motion of the wheel going around and just the concentration. That's why, that's no mind state. That's flow state. And whether you're a tennis player or you're um, maybe a card player or whatever you're doing, where I like the being in a ring in boxing, like a Thai boxing. There's so many things going on at one time that you can't possibly say, okay, if I do this, then he does that, then I can do. It has to be something that you drill over and over and over again. You drill combinations, you drill, footwork, and that's what takes over. And when you're in that flow state in a ring, it's chess on steroids, because there's breathing, there's fear, there's pain, there's stress. There's all these things going on at one time, but it's so exhilarating when you're with somebody you're evenly matched with. You're wearing protective gear, so you're not trying to kill each other. It's just a wonderful experience. So to kind of tie this back into the trading experience, like you talked about, is you catalog all this information. So you've drilled and drilled and drilled, but accessing it is another matter. And how quickly and from what state are we accessing information? And that's getting into that flow state. And I know I kind of lost the thread there for a second, but what the point I guess I'm hoping to make is that yes, there is a flow state, and having played in the markets for 3 years or 5 years or 20 years, you've probably seen all the repeating patterns, but you need to be in the proper state to access them, to draw from them, and then to take action on them.
And what do you do to get into that state? Is it sort of daily meditation and this kind of thing?
I'll be darned if I get in it consistently. And for me, the interesting thing now is, okay, what we talk about is looking at things from the witness perspective, the third party. So it's okay. Here's Nicholas sitting down for his trading day. Look, he hasn't had his coffee yet. Oh, wait a minute. No, he's still thinking about last night. And so being aware of who this person is sitting down to trade is incredibly powerful. So if being able to step away and see, okay, here's this long running TV drama called Scott's Trading Life, and look at our hero today. Boy, is he a mess. Or boy, he thinks he's on track. So when that perspective kind of dies away and melds into something where you don't feel like anything is going on, that's usually when things flow nicely. But to get into that, I can't claim that I do that on a regular basis with any consistency. So yeah, my day starts with an hour of meditation. I live at a temple in Kauai, and I run this temple, and we have a meditation room, and it's perfect. And then I can go chant the morning service in our temple building. But none of that guarantees that I'm going to be in the perfect state. Something gets lost. Inevitably gets lost in that 38-second walk from the temple to my office.
And also you're interacting with something that's changing as well. So it's not a consistent thing you're looking at.
As the quantum guys are scratching their head, it's a wave. Oh, let me look again.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a particle. So there's always something going on, and again, to go back to having the experience of a lot of meditation is to being able to recognize, okay, I've left that space, and to be able to pull yourself back in a lot. You may leave, but you come back a lot quicker. It's easy to get recentered, but I think there's still, the human emotion of it is never going to go away. Or why would you want to trade? It's for the experience. We can call it what we want. I want a yacht. I want a security. I want this. I want that. But we're playing human, spiritual beings having a human experience, and this is the feedback. And life would be awfully boring if I got up every morning and pressed the mouse button and made X dollars.
Yeah, it's funny. Just the other day, I got up and I said to myself, I was in quite a heavy drawdown on a couple of trades, and I said to myself, just embrace it. Just, you love it, really. You love getting beaten up every now and then. It's part of the game. You got to kind of embrace it, and that does a lot to drain the fear and anxiety from you. You know, you just got to say, well, I'm here for that as well, not just to win. You know, money, blah blah, outcomes. You know, great,
Yeah.
but I'm here to participate in any way. And sometimes that will mean taking a few nasty knocks. But if you kind of accept that and say, hey, well, actually, you know, this is kind of fun, the whole thing really shifts. I find. I don't know about you. I
Yeah.
mean, is it, I
Yeah. Yeah. That's you can't have a winning trade without a losing trade. So these are inherently dualistic. I'm going to win. I met a guy in Tokyo that his mantra was, I refuse to lose. Until eventually, 'cause, this is why they have table limits at blackjack tables in Vegas. Because if you keep doubling down, or you keep doubling down on your losses, eventually you're going to win and you're going to take down the house. That's why they limit how much you can bet. And so he refused to lose up until the point where, well, it's not my fault. They closed my account, and it was always they or them. And uh, so remind me about this victim mentality uh, is a good aspect of understanding ourselves. But to your point that, yeah, winning trades all the time would be quite boring. And, we've probably seen that with some of these people that have everything and still throw their lives away through drug addiction or alcohol, ultimately, killing themselves because obviously having everything doesn't mean happiness. And again, my philosophy, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and part of the human experience is to get beat up, to see our attachments. It'd be awfully boring to sit on a cloud stroking a harp all day. So yeah, we're in it for the experience, and like you say, the better we get at accepting the outcome, it's not nothing's happening to me. It's happening to the character called Scott.
I
And
like
having
that.
that
I like sort of
separation,
this separation that you bring into it. It's quite interesting.
yeah, yeah, to realize one day that you're not what's written on your business card. That's the character you're playing. That's that will set you free. Uh, you spend a week in the mountains staring at a wall and asking yourself, "Who am I?" and seeing what comes up. Eventually, you get to the point that there's, I don't know, but it's not what's written on my business card.
Yeah. Going back to what you were talking about, the geometry, this software and so on, is this like an indicator or is it algo trading of some form?
It's an indicator package, which is hugely manipulate. You can manipulate it to whatever your trading style is, and we sell different levels. We actually have an introductory level that you can download and use for free, and there's a ton of videos to support that, both between YouTube and on our website. Uh, and then as you build up to the higher level, there are more things that you can lay on it. And what we call the Holy Grail is the capstone on this guy Charles Drummond and his partner Ted Hearn. And Ted's been around the financial world for 40, maybe 50 years. Charlie Drummond was a single trader, individual trader that made, rumor is, north of 100 million, 150 million on his own account back in the 70s when $1 million was still $1 million. Uh, but he was very, very secretive. And so Ted's been the face of the company, and Charlie's now in his late 80s and doesn't participate. So that software is built on this philosophy that, yeah, there's an energy flow, and then we overlay different things on that, and it all culminates in this Holy Grail thing where it's all pulled together in just a set of nice little indicators and an understanding of what those indicators mean, and to the extent that you can pick a turning point and you would know where you'd want to place a stop. And if, in Charlie's words, if the market isn't doing what I thought it was going to do, then I need to be out. It's doing something else. So there's a huge body of knowledge that's on our, part of the software purchase is you get all these lessons and these seminars that go with this guy that made so much money. In one of his books, he talks about how he controlled the pork pork belly market or something for a day because he'd call his broker and say, "I'll buy 500," and then everybody's like, "Who is this guy?" And the pit would shut down, and then he'd wait a little bit and it'd start to tick a little bit, and then he'd say, "Okay, now I'll sell 1,000." And then the pit would stop. I was like, "What the heck is going on?" And he cataloged all these different trades he made during the day just because he knew he would throw people out of their game and they would be in a state of reaction, and he could extract money from it. Yeah, yeah, but I think few of us really have that mindset, like a Charles Drummond, know, to have the calm, the perseverance, to see it through. You mentioned you go long, or I go long 500 in pork bellies. I'll probably be agonizing every tick, lose my. About the time that it's getting ready to move up 3 cents, I would probably lose my nerve, and I'd settle for a quarter cent loss.
You said you were trading commodities when you started out. Are you still trading commodities, or are you more stocks?
I do indexes mostly. I like, depending on which index looks. Right now, let me put it this way, I'm kind of focused on, I think we're in a topping scenario. How big a decline, that remains to be seen. But the Dow was my interest the last couple of days because it made an all-time high. The other ones have been down for a day or two, so shorting the Dow made sense. Occasionally, I'll trade oil. I'll trade silver. I've been trading a little bit of Bitcoin. Uh, but I also do analysis on our YouTube channel, and I post on LinkedIn. And I find that I'm not very good at trading markets that I'm analyzing.
Ah, okay.
If I could only follow my own advice,
Yeah, a friend of mine who's been on the show, he's also a trading mentor, and every so often he'll have his analysis, he'll do his kind of webinar presentation, and then an hour later he'll think, "Oh shit, no, I didn't. I need to let them know I've changed my mind." Oh
oh,
gosh, yeah, and things don't work out, and he's kind of like really feeling rotten about it because they followed his
Ted
advice.
Hearn, he did a test using Drummond geometry, and he used it. I don't know if it was a fresh account, but he cataloged every single trade for 12 months, and it was a currency trade. And he took 10 grand to 120 grand, and he probably had, I think he said 55, 60% of them were winners, and so it wasn't hugely successful. But what he was doing was he was placing orders to get filled overnight and taking whatever happened. And it was enormously successful in terms of dollars. In time, it was hard uh, because you're surrendering to the market overnight to see what happens. And ideally, you be able to pick your entries and your exits a lot better. But I admired him for being able to pull that off for an entire year. He cataloged everything. It's part of Drummond Market Studies website now. Uh, and it's just that's a testimony to how a Drummond trader can do. But to be able to have that kind of discipline, I thought that was even more impressive.
We talked earlier about fundamental analysis affecting your trading style, and you mostly block out that side of things. There's a lot of chat going on, or it has been for some time. We're now July 2024, and every other video you look at is gloom doom. It's recession's coming. There's going to be a crash like you've never seen before in your lifetime. Possibly a reset, whatever that means, really, and so on and so on. The debt is just completely out of control, both personal and government, and the yen is in a mess, and the
Yeah,
picture is just one big storm, isn't it, on the horizon. Do you let any of that chat affect how you trade? I mean, are you in agreement, and you sort of constantly looking for the first sign of a massive correction, or are you really focused on the chart on the day and shutting that out?
I would like to say that I'm the latter, and that's just not the case. And I let these people live rent free in my own in my house in my head from time to time too often. And the only I don't own a TV. And the only website that I go to for news is called Zero Hedge. And they used to be a great financial site. I think they're more of a, I don't know, they post articles about Kim Kardashian from time to time now. So they may have lost the plot. But um, so even though I know what's going on, and this is interesting because I know what's going on, I know the process. I'm going to look at an article, I'm going to click on a link, it's going to color my mindset, and I'll be darned if I don't. I do it again and again and again, and then I have to step back and laugh at myself, like, here he goes again down that little rabbit hole. But um, I came to realize when I was doing my grad work in 2000, 2001, I'm going to buy XYZ stock and you're going to sell it to me in the secondary market. You do your analysis, I do my analysis. It's all based on the same fucking information. But somehow you're convinced it's going down, I'm convinced it's going up. We can dissect that, but it's not really important. The idea is that some mindset is telling you, this one's had enough of a run. And the same, my mindset, my filtering process is going to take the same information and turn that into, okay, this is worth the risk. And I don't think either one of those processes are 100% logical. I think they're emotionally tinted.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? I mean, I think I've spoken to a number of traders who clearly, from the way we talk, are sort of, they have a bias, like a bearish bias, and now that comes from a pessimism in life. That sort of cynicism, if you will, and
Yeah.
that affects how they trade. They kind of want things to go down because they don't like being fooled by hyperbole. They don't like being fooled by people who boast
Yeah.
and such. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of reflects part of their personality. They just want to take that down.
Yeah.
And then there are the other who's kind of more the optimist and always wants things to go right and up and what have you. But it's quite interesting. Some people have quite strong biases. I think I'm ever so slightly bearish or cynical in my bias, but I'm much more even than some traders I get to talk to.
Right.
How about you?
Well, let's put it this, or this is the way I understand, is that I have to make if I'm in my brain, if I'm in my head, my beliefs and my conditioning run the show. So and we've all heard this, by the time you're 5 or 6 or 7, your belief structures and your conditioning are in place, and you say, this is how the world works and this is how I need to behave to be safe in this world because I'm a kid, I'm a little tiny thing. And then we know that we don't go back and really revisit this belief structure, this conditioning. So here I am as a pilot flying around in autopilot on a map that I created when I was 5, and now I'm 60. Yeah, there's a problem there, and most of us, me included, just don't see that for what it is. So when I plop down on my chair, maybe I'm biased. Yeah, I'm gonna, the glass is half full, the glass is half empty, and I'll seek out subconsciously. I'll seek out confirmation. So I'll click on that link or that analyst, and I'll feed that. And then by the time I'm going to look at the market, I've already built this scenario. I just don't want to admit it. I act like it's a big revelation or surprise that I went long when I've been building that for days. So to get out of that mindset is, again, that's why I recommend that, meditation practices, to learn how to step out of that mindset and create that firewall. So I'm actually in a no mind state. When the next time you interview me and I'm sitting on my yacht off the coast of Thailand, you'll know that I've achieved that. I guess what I'm saying is that every single day we have the opportunity to practice these things and to be aware of what we're doing. And, I can drop a bowling ball on my foot by accident, but it's really hard to do it a second time on purpose. There's got to be a really strong motivation to do that. So what I mean by that is that I can do things without awareness that don't suit me. But once my awareness grows and I'm aware of what's going on, I can't do things that don't suit me. It's just not in in our makeup as human beings. We self-survival, self-preservation takes over. So if I know something's not good for me, then I can't do it with awareness. So the guy that's sitting down at the monitor to place the trade, is he in an aware state or is he in a reactive state of fear, greed, or anxiety? And and, and being able to monitor that is where things start to change.
You also teach, don't you? I mean, it's a kind of healing, coaching, mindset sort of teaching. Is that right?
What I've done is I've done energetic work over the last almost 15 years, generally with people that have been sick, and and this is all part of this thing why drum and geometry resonates with me, because this idea of energy, one energy exists, permeates, it's inseparable. You can't destroy it, you can't create it. It's there. And going back to when my mother was suffering from cancer, and I was interested in, okay, chemo wasn't going to work. We knew that, but it was going to give her some time. Is there a solution? And that's what got me down this energy hole. To eventually, I developed this practice where I could be in Tokyo on my cushion in a meditative state, and I could work with you in England or somebody on the mainland in the US or different countries. And I'm channeling energy to somebody so they can use that to overcome whatever's going on. I'm not personally fixing you, I'm giving you the energy. And the theory behind that is that if I'm in the proper mind state, no mind state, my intention is enough to channel this higher source energy to somebody else. If all of us could achieve the no mind state, we could get focused for a long enough period of time, we could all do it ourselves. But most of us don't have practice with that, and that's where the energy worker comes in.
Okay, and do you incorporate this with trading? I mean, is this something you perhaps are traders your typical client, or is this almost kind of a separate thing? It doesn't really matter who comes to you.
I have not to date worked with anybody who's a trading, who approaches me and says, Scott, can you help me because my trading sucks and I want to be better. And I was, of course, say, this, yes, and it's important because I'm not selling anything here. I've never charged anybody for a trading set, or a healing session, and I've probably done 1,000 of them over 15 years. So it's never been about making money, because what I learned, is a Zen practitioner or student, is that I'm not healing anybody. I'm not doing anything to anybody. I'm actually learning about myself in every one of these. So if it's somebody with stage 4 cancer, it's somebody with anxiety, it's somebody with depression, all these different things are just elements of me that I'm healing. So that's my philosophy. So there's no need to charge somebody money, because they're helping me. I'm not helping them. So yeah, I'd be very interested in working with anybody that has a situation that they want to resolve.
Interesting. And have you worked with traders at all?
No, not specifically.
No, not at all. Interesting.
And I'll throw, since this is a podcast, I'm very interested in working with children who have autism, ADHD. I've tried to crack into that circle, and I haven't had any success. So I just throw that out there. It's always something that's been interesting in my heart that I would want to do that. But working with traders, working as a group, things like that are all doable. It's a little bit longer conversation probably than we have now, but you can always follow up with me in an email. I can explain that.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, Scott, we should round up there. It's been great talking with you.
Yeah, that's great. To be continued, I'd like to think. And again, if I don't know when you post this, if you can post my, people can see me on my website, the healing website, and they can also
we'll put links
through that, contact me through that. And there are usually 1,000 questions with energetic work, and that's okay. We can answer them all.